Okay, so what if everything you thought you knew about how your brain ages was just wrong? Forget that simple idea of growing up, peaking, and then declining. We're about to look at a brand new map of your brain's entire life, and believe me, it is way more exciting than you think.
You know the story, right? We've all heard it. It's this simple arc. You're a sponge as a kid. Your brain hits its peak in your 20s, and then it's a long, slow, downhill slide from there. It's a neat story, but it turns out it's just not the case.
That's right. The latest neuroscience, based on thousands of actual brain scans, is telling us our brains don't follow some smooth, predictable curve. Instead, it's much more like a series of dramatic, life-altering reboots that happen at very specific moments in our lives.
And here it is. This is the new map. These are the 5 great epochs or stages of your brain's life. Now just take a look at those age ranges. I'm guessing some of those are raising an eyebrow, right? We're going to walk through every single one starting right from the beginning.
All right, let's dive in. The first huge phase of your brain's life is all about one thing: building. This covers the first 2 epochs, childhood and adolescence, and it is a period of absolutely explosive and dynamic change. So, in early childhood, your brain is doing this thing called network consolidation. What does that even mean? Well, think of it like this. Your brain goes wild, building way more connections than it will ever need. It's like a sculptor who starts with this giant, messy block of marble. Then, and this is the really clever part, it starts to meticulously prune away all the connections that aren't getting used, which makes the ones that are being used even stronger. It's a messy, brilliant, and incredibly effective way to build a supercomputer from scratch.
And then, bam, everything changes. Right around age 9, the brain hits its first massive turning point. That frantic building phase of childhood, it's over, and a totally new project begins.
This next stage isn't about adding more stuff. It's all about making the network you already have way faster and way smarter. It's kind of like taking a town's old, twisty country roads and upgrading the whole thing to a super fast, fiber optic internet grid. It's all about speed. It's all about efficiency. Which, of course, brings us to the big question, right? The one that scientists and probably a lot of parents have been asking forever. If this whole upgrade process starts around age 9, when does it actually finish? When is the brain, structurally an adult?
Get ready for this. 32. Yep, not 18, not 21, 32. And that single number just completely flips our whole idea of what adulthood even means.
I mean, just think about that. Neurologically speaking, you're an adolescent until you're in your early 30s. That is so much later than we ever thought. And what's driving this? It's the continued growth of white matter. That's basically the brain's cabling, the insulation around the wires that makes the signals fly faster and faster. Okay, so after all that incredible building and upgrading, the brain finally settles into its longest and most stable period. We're calling this the stable plateau.
For over 30 years, your brain's structure just holds steady. It's hit this incredible plateau. All that wiring is finally optimized. The networks are solid. Your brain is basically primed for peak cognitive performance. This is the time when complex decision-making, handling your emotions, understanding people, all of that is at its height, all thanks to the incredible work the brain did for the first 32 years.
For more than 3 decades, your brain is just humming along in this peak state. But then, around age 66, the next big reboot kicks in. This signals the end of that stable era and the beginning of a whole new kind of reorganization.
And this is super important. This new map doesn't just write off the later years as decline. No way! It sees them as another active phase of change. It's the brain's final act.
So in this 4th stage, from about 66 to 83, we start to see the first real structural shifts. That amazing white matter cabling that the brain worked so hard on, it starts to degrade a bit. This can make our thinking feel a little slower, because those signals just aren't traveling quite as fast. And this rewiring also opens up a window where the brain is a bit more vulnerable to health issues, because the system's just not quite as resilient as it used to be.
And then we have the final turning point. Around age 83, the brain crosses its last major threshold, stepping into the very last documented stage of its life.
This last epoch, from 83 onwards, is really a continuation of the changes that started in the 4th stage. It marks the brain's last big structural reboot, its final planned reconfiguration. This is the completion of this incredible, lifelong journey of our neural wiring.
Okay, so this is a really cool new model, right? But so what? What does it actually mean for you and me, for our health, for our future? Well, this is where the theory gets super practical.
Here's the bottom line. These changes aren't gradual, they're abrupt, and they happen at predictable ages. And look, this isn't just some clever idea. It comes from detailed MRI scans of almost 4,000 people, from tiny babies all the way up to folks in their 90s. And that predictability, that's a total game changer for medicine.
So why is this such a big deal? Well, this map gives us 3 incredibly powerful new tools. First, it pinpoints vulnerability. It shows us these critical windows when our brains are most susceptible to issues. Second, it helps explain why conditions like autism or dementia tend to pop up at specific ages that line up perfectly with these reboots. And maybe most importantly, it gives us a roadmap, a new way to think about creating treatments that are targeted to the specific brain stage a person is in, whether they're 15 or 75.
So let's just put it all together. The old view was a simple, smooth curve, and it was wrong. This new map shows us what's really going on. Our brain's life is this dramatic story told in 5 acts, and it's not defined by a slow decline, but by a series of radical, revolutionary reboots.
And that leaves us with one last question, and this one's for you. Whether your next turning point is at 32, or 66, or 83, this map tells you it's coming. So knowing that your brain is getting ready for its next great reorganization, what are you going to do to prepare for it?